For 20 years, we've committed to helping the people of the Cayman Islands live longer, healthier, and happier lives. But healthcare and the expectations of patients are rapidly evolving, and so must we. We have made incredible clinical and technological advancements and achieved JCI Accreditation, the internationally recognized gold seal of approval for patient safety and quality of care. So it's time for our image to reflect our transformation from a local hospital to a world-class healthcare authority with a new logo that symbolizes national duty and pride, a statement that reinforces our commitment to our patients every step of the way, with colors as bold as our mission to provide the highest quality healthcare. Dynamic, professional, skilled, committed, caring. This is HSA.
So we're being joined this afternoon with Ms. Raquel Sutherland here at the Health Services Authority. Lots of exciting things, Raquel, have been going on here that you're going to obviously share with us. And I think one of the biggest announcements that we've heard coming out of the HSA in quite some time is the fact that the HSA has now obtained this Joint Commission International Accreditation standard. Right. And I know the average person on the street is kind of like, this sounds exciting, but what on earth does it mean? Yeah. So we're going to try to break it down for everyone. First of all, tell us, what is JCI?
All right, so Joint Commission International is an accrediting body that is focused on healthcare and healthcare organizations. And in lay terms, what they do is they set a set of standards that they use as a benchmark to ensure that organizations have safe, quality standards of practice within the organization. So what that means is they will create a benchmark to be measured against, and certain targets that an organization would want to ensure that they're meeting and implement within their organization to ensure that they are focused on patient safety. And so for us, having the gold seal essentially means that they've set a series of standards, and there's over 1,000 of them, and we as an organization have met the basic requirement according to what they've set out as a standards for international healthcare organizations. And so meeting that is a big deal because it is not an easy feat. Yes. But what it means is that we've taken those extra measures to ensure that when persons come to HSA, they can assure that it's going to be quality service. They can ensure that we have safe practices in place, and they know that we are being held accountable by this overarching body to maintain that.
Yes. And this is a pretty big deal because I think on this island, to have it really puts you in sort of la creme de creme, if you will.
Absolutely.
Of institutions, right?
Yeah. And it's great. It's almost like if you're going to compare it to hotels, it's like your 5-star rating, right? And everyone wants to have this thing that you're striving towards. But besides just being rated, I think for us, we took a step back and we thought, hey, if we are going to be offering healthcare, it needs to be the highest quality of that, right? And so we went back and we said to ourselves, what is the thing that we need to do to ensure not that we are saying that we're offering high quality healthcare, but what is the thing that we can be measured against so when others look at us, they can say the same. And so JCI being the front runner in accrediting bodies, because they're not the only one, we've decided to go in that direction because it helps our service users, our patients, our family, our own families, because we access healthcare here as well, our colleagues, our friends, to know that we are ensuring that we're looking at best practice at all times.
We're going to get into the details a little bit here in terms of what the HSA had to go through in order to get to this point, because I know that it's been quite a long journey, but JCI is the industry leading international accreditation body with over 1,000 accredited and certified organizations around the world. So how do you feel knowing that the HSA has finally attained this?
Oh man, it's an amazing feeling. I think one of the things that we, as we were going through our journey, really felt a sense of pride around was the camaraderie among our team. Everyone, it's not something that leadership is saying that you have to do or that you had to do. Everyone decided, hey, I'm a part of HSA and this is what I need to do.
Yes.
The entire team came together. They took ownership of this, and they wear it with pride, right? So this gold star seal of approval now, everyone is wearing it with pride, saying, hey, I contributed to this organization being accredited. I am a part of the HSA team and I am accredited. And wearing that with a sense of pride, I think, means a lot to us as an organization, because it helps us to know that not only have we achieved it, that we'll now be able to maintain it because we have that buy-in.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah. Absolutely wonderful. So when we're talking about now this JCI International World Class Accreditation, Gold Seal of Approval, what does that actually mean in real terms for the average person to understand?
Yeah. So with the standards, it's broken down into sections so we can focus on very specific things. Medication management being one of those things is one of the core ones that we had even identified as our internal goal that we wanted to pay special attention to. Right. So the process with which we gather your information, fill your prescriptions, get that out to you, whether you're inpatient, outpatient, the process and the standards that are set up sets goals, targets, parameters, and processes for us to follow to ensure that that is a safe process. Because if you look at worldwide statistics, medication errors accounts for a lot of the issues that exist in healthcare. And so we identified it as one of our core focuses as we were going through this process. So we had created internally what we called a SIM. That was our focus. And we talked about safe quality care, infection control, and medication management, among the other standards that we were working on, but really identifying within our context, that is something that we didn't want any of our patients or service users to have a negative experience around. Right? When we talk about infection control, I mean, it's a hospital. And so even with the best practices, there's going to be a lot of stigma associated with people thinking, well, is this hospital clean? Is it not? How do we prove that to you? When you come in and you see your bed made, well, how do you know that it was freshly made? When you come in and you see your restroom clean, how do you know it was freshly clean? And so going through and making sure that we are setting benchmarks and targets that can be measured against. When we go back as, you know, quality officers and managers, how do we know that the job was done? All of those markers are things that we are now including as part of our processes that we can actually genuinely measure against. Tracking and monitoring of processes, all of these types of things helps us to ensure that quality that we're very heavily focused in as part of this process. So what does the gold seal mean? It means that we are now implementing practices, strategies, processes on a daily basis that are specific to ensuring that you are going to, as the end user, be assured or reassured that we've done our due diligence, that we have benchmarks that we're measuring ourselves against, that we are doing things, processes, strategies that ensure that the end result, that the experience that you have as the end user is always going to be in your best interest.
So when I walked up today here at the HSA, things looked different.
Yeah.
Physically, things looked
Absolutely.
different. So tell us, what is that also part of, you know, the entire accreditation process, giving the HSA a completely new and fresh look?
Yeah.
You've got a new logo. It seems like a lot of exciting things are actually happening all at the same time.
I think it's a very exciting time for the HSA because, of course, historically people will know us, Georgetown Hospital, and we're almost even going back to that because we want people to connect with us the way that they experience us, right? And so Health Services Authority came about 20 years ago, and that was our rebranding at that time. But the reality is, our patients who are near and dear to us, who are committed to us, who come back to us, they know us as Georgetown Hospital, right? And so we want to make sure that we are setting an image that people connect with. We want you to know that we might have a different look, but it's the same great service, and that we're improving on that service as time goes by. So besides our anniversary, we are also going through a rebranding process. What does that mean? If we are going through the process of changing our standards, making sure that we're aligning ourselves with accreditation, we want you to understand that that change is going to be all encompassing within the organization. So we're changing our look. We're changing our logo. We changed our catchphrase, which is still encompassing our core values. It's talking about our commitment to caring for you, right?
Yes.
And so in changing that, we are now saying, sure, the rebranding is responsible for the changes in the colors, but JCI isn't responsible for the changing in the processes. So all of our changes are all focused on the way forward. What is it that we need to do next? Because healthcare is evolving, research is evolving, ways of offering care is evolving. And so we want our patients to know, hey, we know that these things need to change. And so we're evolving too. We're evolving to ensure that we are always best practice, always looking for what does the research say, always looking for what is the best next step in healthcare. We're doing that through the staff that we hire, right? Looking for the best clinicians to ensure that you can get the best care. We're doing that through expansions, looking at where else can we expand our services in the district so that you don't always just have to come to this main hub. What are we doing so that you can get into your clinics faster? What are we doing so that you can get your medication out the pharmacy faster? All of these processes. And then in doing that, some of our next steps, now that we've gotten the quality part, we want to focus on our customer service. So we have now internally started an initiative where we're saying is, what are our patients experiencing when they get here? And how can we make that as positive as possible? How can we improve in that? How can we all come together to play a role, not just for a new look and for new standards, but new experience?
Wow.
Yeah.
Sounds like very, very exciting times.
Absolutely.
Can you walk us through a little bit of what was involved in the accreditation process work?
Yeah.
Like, what did it take for you guys? I know, like I said, through the grapevine, I
Yeah.
heard that it was a very, very long journey.
It was.
But what did it take? What were the expectations of JCI for y'all to be able to get that gold seal?
Yeah, so we had to rework, evolve, and expound on a lot of our policies and procedures. And there were some that we had to include and incorporate that we may not have had initially. Some of the other things that we needed to do were focused around our facilities. So facility upgrades that talked about, well, what types of flooring, cabinet ceilings are going to be best to ensure that we are managing infection control. So you'll see that if you've come here to the HSA recently and had to have an inpatient experience, meaning you had to stay with us overnight, you'll see that those rooms have all been revamped. And so we're now looking at how do we put down flooring that not only feels more comfortable and homey, but that is also going to be better for cleanliness, that's going to be better for us to manage infection control, and that's going to be better for the experience that you have. No one wants to come to the hospital and have to stay here. And so if we can make that as comfortable of an experience as possible, then those types of physical structural infrastructure changes are going to contribute to that. Like I said, we mentioned a focus on medication management. We had to rewrite some processes around that. We had to reframe, essentially. It's still the same process somewhat, but we had to reframe it to add some additional measures in there to make it safer, right? And so when we talk about our safer matrices, we had to go through and put all of our processes through a framework that really scrutinized it and said, this might be a great process, but is it the best process it can be? Is it the safest that it can be? And how do you tweak it? In doing that, we then had to retrain our staff, reintroduce policies, and really spend some time internally learning the new way forward. And then just looking at the organization as a whole, all of the processes that we had in place, and we had to go through every single one of them. So if you've ever had a procedure here in recent times, you'll see our OR team, for example, doing what we call a pre-surgical timeout. This is where we are going to stop and we're going to say who we have here, what our plan is for this procedure, what's going to happen, all the steps, and make sure that everyone in the room understands this is John Brown, this is what John Brown is here to have,
Right.
and John Brown also being included in that experience. What that means is when you go to sleep, you now know that everyone in this room has just confirmed for you that we all know why we're here, we all know who we have, we all know what we're doing. It starts to alleviate anxieties that persons might have around things that they might have seen on TV and shows in other hospitals, experiences that they may have had firsthand or otherwise, to know that we have looked at every single process at a granular level, gone through it with a fine-tooth comb and said, hey, this process has to change, update. These are the things that we need to do to make things safer. And safety, and you hear me repeating it, and it's not because I don't have other things to speak to, but it really, really is the core and the foundation of why we went through this process.
Right. So patient safety being the number
The
one.
forefront,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Absolutely. Wow. So that sounds fantastic. And how did you prepare for even beginning the process? Like what was involved in the preparation of all of that?
So to ensure that the process is non-biased, JCI accreditors do not engage with the organization prior. So who is going to come? We don't know who's coming, and they don't know when they're coming either. That is assigned at a later date. But what they do have is a consultation team that you can engage with, and they're almost like two separate organizations. So inviting consultants to come and say, hey, this is our organization, these are our processes now, these are our policies, what are the things that we need to do to be in line with the standards? So engaging with those consultants to help us to start the journey was one of those key things that we had done to ensure that we were really going to meet the targets of these standards. It's great as an organization when you have a view on what you think is the way forward, but it's going to be important that we get that patient feedback. And so you'll notice, and some people may find it frustrating, but you'll notice that every time you come here for HSA for a service now, you might get a phone call, you might get an email saying, hey, how was your experience? And can you answer these questions for us? That was a major part in us moving forward, because we heard what you said. We heard you say, hey, by the way, we need people to come and check on us when we're waiting in a waiting room. What did we do? We hired more patient experience officers. We expanded on that team. We are coming up with a plan. We hear you saying, hey, we're concerned that when we call, we can't get our appointments, or we're not sure who we spoke to the last time. We centralize that service. So that feedback that you give us through that patient feedback process also influenced and spoke to a lot of the decisions that we've made as we changed our processes to be in line with these strategies. So consulting not just the JCI consultants, but consulting our service users, because you guys are the ones who are having the experience, right? And so that was a really important part of our process.
Yes. And so that consultation, especially from the users, will be something that will be ongoing.
That will be ongoing, and especially now that we've achieved the gold seal and we know that our processes, our standards, our policies are safe according to JCI standards, our next focus is making sure that you have a good experience. Because it's great that we've checked all the boxes and all our checks and balances are in place from a clinical standpoint, from an operational standpoint, but how do you feel when you come here? How do you feel when you engage with our staff? How do you feel after you leave? And that is our next focus.
Right. So you did the preparation. They obviously came in and they were pleased with the standards that you put in place and updated processes. I know for a fact that even all of your staff had to now supply, HR with documentation, proof of all their credentials.
Yes.
So it really has elevated, I think, in the minds of the user, what they now think of. Okay, this person can say that they're a registered nurse, but now they have had to prove it to someone. They have had to prove it, absolutely. And that accreditation is now on file and has been provided to the HSA. Yes. But, what was the official date then that everything, they sort of signed off on everything and gave you that gold seal? So
they came here the first week of May. Okay. They spent 7 days with us. And at the end of the 7 days, they were able to give us a preliminary response to say, based on what we've seen and heard here, we're okay. we feel that you guys have met the standards. And I think it's even important to note when we compare how many of the standards that we actually met in comparison to the rest of the world, it was actually quite significant. Yeah. So imagine there are 1,000 standards that are a part of the 7th edition, which is what the most recent set of standards for JCI were. And you will have organizations sometimes even having 100 of those unmet and still meeting the overall expectation.
Right.
Imagine us having even significantly less of those unmet. So we only had about 30 that were partially met, that we then still went back and improved on those so that we could hit that 100%, right? And so even the feedback that we got from them compared to other international organizations who are larger, maybe even more comprehensive than us in terms of their size and their structure, we've still even surpassed some of those in this first attempt at accreditation, which even the accreditors, were quite surprised by, and even started to explore how we as HSA and some of our key players could maybe even consult for them when they're looking to accredit hospitals in future. So the standards that we had set here in our first attempt were so significant that they thought, hey, can we have you help other organizations who might go through this in future? And we really were taken aback and sort of just elated that the efforts of all of our team coming together and buying into this process and giving 110% really spoke volumes to what the accreditors saw. So they sent back the official documentation and seal about 2 weeks after they left. And so, since mid-May, we have been officially a JCI accredited hospital here in the Cayman Islands.
So a blueprint for others to follow.
Absolutely.
This is fantastic. Now, what about the sister islands? You know, we hear sometimes the sister islands feel like, this is fantastic that this is happening in Grand Cayman, but what about us?
Yeah. So we went in 100%. So we included our sister island hospitals and healthcare centers. So Faith Hospital and Little Cayman Health Center, as well as all of our district clinics here on Grand Cayman, are all accredited.
Wow, that's
Absolutely.
fantastic.
Yes.
Well, congratulations
Thank you.
To the entire Health Services Authority team. It's very, very important, I think, as a country, that the sort of the hospital, government-owned and operated hospital, has achieved this accreditation. And we certainly look forward to hearing more in the future about the real world changes that will come out of this, I think, for patients in particular.
Absolutely. And thanks.
So thank you. Yeah,
Wonderful.
thank you so much for giving us this insight into JCI and what the accreditation process involved, and just answering some of the questions that sort of the average person might have about all of this.
Absolutely.
Because it does sound exciting, but we like to be in the know here on our platform for sure.
If you think quality and you think safety, we're hoping that you think the HSA.
Okay, wonderful.